Can you guess what the #1 cause of poor public speaking is? Here's a hint. It's not being nervous, and it's not being unprepared. I'll give you 5 seconds. The answer is filler words. Believe it or not, but filler words are actually the most common problem with public speaking for many people. But let's take a step back. What exactly are filler words? Well, to put it simply, filler words are words or sounds that are used to fill an empty void or silence whenever someone is talking. They could be words like like, so, etc. There's a ton of them, and people use them very often in daily conversation. And that's normal. It's okay to use them whenever you're talking to a friend, a family member, or somebody that you know pretty well. But the problem arises whenever you come to formal speaking, like debate, or giving a speech, or maybe talking to someone who's a little bit older. Filler words really mess up your flow, and they make you seem not only unprepared, but also completely unconfident, not only to the audience, but to your opponents and judges as well. And while people may not be actively counting how many filler words you're using, they'll notice them psychologically throughout the conversations that you have, which is why it's important to make sure that you reduce these filler words, as I'll explain how to do in today's video. But before we talk about how you can solve your filler word problem, let's first address why filler words are actually bad. Well, in a debate context, filler words can hurt you by not only making you seem less confident, but also making you seem less prepared to your judges and opponents. Specifically when it comes to your judges, a lot of older judges, especially those who are hard of hearing, will have trouble following your argument if you use constant filler words that break the structure and clarity of your argument. Especially when you're in your debate mindset, a lot of times you have a natural flow to how you talk. And so it can be nice when you're just rambling on, even if you're not really talking about too much, because it makes you seem like you're actually talking very smart. But if you have a lot of filler words while you're talking, even if your judge isn't necessarily counting how many filler words you use, they are still psychologically noticing how many filler words you're using. And they can see that, okay, this person is very unprepared because they're stuttering a lot and they're making constant breaks in their sentence. But additionally, as I mentioned earlier, it also hurts them when it comes to flowing your argument because it makes it harder for them to write it down on paper or for them to type it up on their computer, since they now have to deal with all the filler words and constant breaks that ruin the natural flow of the argument. Now, in a speech context, it's actually quite similar to the debate context, because a lot of times if you're using a bunch of filler words, it can really hurt your clarity and make you seem less confident in front of your audience or whoever else is nearby. The thing is with speech is that it's a little different than debate because you don't have a judge who's actively following your points. And a lot of times the audience won't follow exactly what you're saying by taking notes or by writing it down. They'll just be kind of listening in and hearing it subconsciously, or maybe tuning into the way you're speaking. And so they'll notice things that you do. They'll pay attention to gestures, the way you talk, and the way you move, for example. And so if you use filler words, it can actually create a distracting effect and distract them from the good things that you're doing with your speech, because those filler words are very noticeable and cause constant breaks in their own thinking and in your own thinking as well. Okay, I promise we're almost about to get to the solution part of the video, but just wait a bit and let me talk for a little longer and then we can get straight to it. To understand the solution behind solving your filler word problem, we first have to understand what is the root cause behind filler words. As I already touched on earlier, the root cause behind filler words is the need to fill a silence gap that you create in your mind with your own perception and with your own thoughts. In reality, there's no need for filler words. There's absolutely no silence to fill. There's no void that actually exists. It's just your mind telling you to think for longer so that way you can produce a better sentence with better clarity. But in reality, that own stutter that you bring in, or that own filler word that you bring into the sentence or to the speech, only worsens your clarity. And so the solution is to obviously fix that gap. Fix that psychological effect that is making you take these filler words and put them into your sentences. But how do you do that? It's natural, of course, right? You want to think longer so you can say what is the better sentence. And that's not wrong. It's just about the fact that you're using the filler word. The problem isn't the gap. The problem is the filler word itself. And so rather than trying to get rid of the gap, we should try and work a solution that allows us to not only keep the gap that you have naturally and that your brain wants, but also to change the filler word that's being used alongside that gap, which is how we get the solution to the filler word problem. Now, coaches and different people will call this technique differently by name, but for our purposes, we're going to call this the pause technique. The pause technique is very simple. Whenever there's a filler word that you're about to say or a pause that you need to make because you need to think, what you're going to do is instead of using a filler word to drag on that sentence, you're going to replace it with a pause in which you don't say a single word. For example, the cat walked quickly versus the cat walked quickly. Notice how even though I took a long pause and got some time to think there, that I still managed to keep the clarity and flow of the sentence and made it sound natural throughout. That's what the pause technique allows you to do. It allows you to keep the clarity and keep your flow and keep the state of your sentence all intact without any breaks like the filler word has. And so, while it may seem kind of unreasonable at first, the more you use it and the more you learn how to integrate the pause into your sentences and into your speeches, the more you'll realize that it completely changes the game of how you debate and how you speak publicly. Though maybe you don't like the pause technique or you just don't trust it. In this case, I still have 2 more exercises that you can use that will help you to properly cut out your filler words and allow you to train your brain to stop those gaps that you may have. The first technique is going to be the recording technique. The way it works is that you record yourself for about a minute and you just say whatever. It can be about anything. The only thing you have to do with this is you have to count the amount of filler words you use in that single minute that you record for. And then the amount that you tally is going to be the amount of filler words that you used. Once you have your tally up, you're going to then re-record again until you can get that number of filler words down to 0. The way this works is by training your brain to eventually stop using filler words, since you learn to naturally cut them out and learn how to avoid them. The second exercise that you can do is by talking in slow motion. Believe it or not, but talking in slow motion actually will help you to cut out your gaps by forcing you to deliberately speak slower than you would normally talk. A lot of times people talk too fast, and that's why they have filler words. But if you slow yourself down to an uncomfortable pace, you can actually cut out filler words since you have excess time to think. And so while it may not be helpful in practice for debate rounds or in practice for your speeches, it can be good practice at home for you to cut out filler words in general when you're not giving a speech, when you're not giving a debate lecture, etc. And so while this activity may not be the number 1 solution, it still will help you accomplish your goal of cutting out filler words if that's what you're looking for, and help you to stop with your gaps if they're also trying to stop that as well. The key takeaway you need to make here is that overall, filler words are bad for you. Sure, they may be used in daily day-to-day conversation, but in everything else, they almost always hurt you. And so, you should aim to get rid of them as much as you can, even if it means taking extra pauses between your speeches, or just trying to replace them with something else that isn't a filler word. But yeah, that's it for today's episode, and I hope you tune in again, where next time we'll continue with our unit and our lessons about why your voice matters and how to improve your public speaking. Peace.